the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Quick injury update and rankings update for you if you want a deeper explanation on some of the injuries and how that affects everything along with the weather. Hit the time codes because I'm just going to do a quick TDRL off the top to get you ready for everything that's going to come this weekend. Let's start with the injury report. You can find this updated on Sunday morning and then again after the inactives in the Mayo Media newsletter that is completely free to use, so I would hope that you would go do that. Austin Eckler is expected out for this game. Josh Kelly expected to get the start in the 54-point total against Minnesota, one of the best spots on it. Last week, Kelly played Tennessee. Not a great spot. This week against Minnesota, much better spot. Remember the last time we saw Minnesota that they were playing the Eagles and DeAndre Swift ran for almost 200 yards. Jamal Williams is out for the Saints against Green Bay. Kendry Miller will be back splitting carries with Tony Jones. Quez Watkins is in the wrong spot in this, but hey, he's out this week too for the Eagles on Monday Night Football. David Montgomery is expected out for the Lions. Expect more Jahmyr Gibbs, and more Craig Reynolds in the backfield for the Lions. Justice Hill is out for the Ravens. Gus Edwards in the one spot. Melvin Gordon was activated from the practice squad. They also signed Kenyon Drake. Salvin Ahmed and his groin injury out for Miami. He joins Jeff Wilson, who's on the IR right now. Cam Akers was traded to Minnesota, but he's likely not going to play against the Chargers. That could change as of Sunday morning, but right now he's expected to be out. Deion Jackson is a surprise cut by the Colts on Saturday. They signed Trey Sermon, who's expected to be active for them. He's probably not going to cut into anything that Zach Moss does, but this could be a reason that Zach Moss played so many snaps last week. Aaron Jones is a game-time decision for the Packers. He is trending towards in after practicing in a limited capacity all week long, so keep an eye on him when the actives are out. Kareem Hunt was signed by Cleveland. He will play in Week 3, according to head coach Kevin Stefanski. Stumbling over everything. Kendry Miller, as I said, is in. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be in for the Eagles. Boston Scott is going to be out with a concussion in that backfield. Will they ever give a carry to Rashad Penny? Who knows? Probably not. Isaiah Pacheco is expected in for the Chiefs. Ditto for Cordero Patterson and the Falcons against the Lions. Obviously, Saquon Barkley missed Week 3 on Thursday Night Football against San Francisco. Chase Edmonds is out. He was placed on injured reserve, so at least 4 weeks. Jonathan Taylor, Jeff Wilson still on IR, eligible to return in Week 5. If they're still not injured, Alvin Kamara will be back next week from his 3-game suspension. For the wide receivers, Zay Jones is out, so expect way more Christian Kirk, like we saw a week ago when his snap percentage went through the roof with Zay Jones on the sidelines. Odell Beckham is out for the Ravens. Expect more Nelson Aguilar in that game. See, I just flipped Boston Scott and Quez Watkins. There's the Boston Scott news. He's out with a concussion, as is Quez Watkins for the Eagles. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a game-time decision. He has traveled to Cleveland with the Titans, but don't expect much from him in a tough matchup, mind you, as well. Kadarius Toney is also going to be a game-time decision, but unless your league includes drops, then you probably don't need to play Kadarius Toney. Jalen Waddle still technically needs to clear concussion protocol. That could happen on Sunday. It's looking more likely now than it did earlier in the week. I like River Craycraft if Waddle sits. I do not like River Craycraft if Jalen Waddle ends up playing. We'll get to the weather in a second, but that could be a game that is affected by some not crazy being in the very south of Florida, but there's still potential for rain in that game. Christian Watson is a game time decision. He got a rest day Thursday, but practiced on Wednesday and Friday. He should make his season debut for the Packers, but maybe not 100%, but pretty close to it. DK Metcalf and his ribs problem is expected in. Devontae Adams in. Devonta Smith expected to be in Monday Night Football. Puka Nacua and his oblique again for Monday Night Football, expected to play according to head coach Sean McVay. Amon-Ra St. Brown expected in. Jacoby Myers expected in for the Raiders. Brendan Ayuk obviously missed Week 3. Debo banged up his ribs in that game too. He should be good to go for next week with 10 days rest. And Deontay Johnson is out. He was placed on injured reserve. Breaking news on Saturday for Monday Night Football. Irv Smith is expected to be out for the Bengals. Drew Sample or Wilcox would be expected to go into that role, but without Joe Burrow probably playing, probably don't want to play those guys. Will Disley and his shoulder is expected out for the Seahawks. Foster Moreau is not practicing. No final word on him yet for the Saints, but he's probably not going to play. Logan Thomas has been ruled out with a concussion. John Bates, you'd think, is the first man up. I like Cole Turner a little bit better if you need a tight end sleeper this week. Bryce Young, out for week 3, maybe even week 4 as well. Andy Dalton starting in his place. Anthony Richardson has been ruled out with a concussion. Minshew Walk is, they went to the mall fast food court, and they picked up some Minshew Walk. He's going to be starting for the Colts, and Joe Burrow is expected to be out for week 3, at least according to Jamar Chase. There is still a chance he plays on Monday Night Football. For your season-long fantasy league, you are not waiting around to see if Joe Burrow is going to play or not, and then all of a sudden you have to play Kurt Browning, Jake Browning, whoever the hell it's going to be. You don't want to play them. So unless you have a viable option, do you even really want to wait for Joe Burrow at this point? If he's as injured as he was the first 2 weeks, he's going to be absolute dog shit. So you probably don't want to play him anyway. So when we jump over to the quarterback rankings, we can find that out. They did just sign A.J. McCarron to the practice squad. So it's trending towards out for Joe Burrow. And listen, if Cincinnati wants to get it right this season, even if they lose to the Rams, they're still favored, by the way, even though Burrow's expected to be out. That even if they start 0-3, they're still good enough that they can rally with a healthy Joe Burrow. But if they're just going to be playing an injured Joe Burrow all season long, things aren't going to go well for them. But I do want to jump back there for a second. We can take a look. Sub to the newsletter. There's a new one that comes out every Saturday night, and then another one on Sunday evening, recapping the games. Again, completely free. And if you do want a chance to check all of this out, and when the updates come, you just sub down in the, you can just sub down in the description of the video right now. Smash the like while you're here as well. Let's jump over to those quarterback rankings. So if you are looking for a fill-in for Joe Burrow, let's see what we got cooking over here. Find all the rankings down in the description, in the newsletter, and on dknation.com. I guess like the Goof would probably be the closest one. The Goof is ranked 10th in my rankings right now. What else do we have on the go here? Deshaun Watson, probably owned. Kenny Pickett against the Raiders. I know it doesn't look great for Kenny Pickett. And even Sam Howell in a game that probably will be very affected by the wind. In terms of the weather, you're looking at the Washington game with Buffalo, the Baltimore game with Indy, might be in sort of the center of the hurricane that's going up the East Coast. The most impacted game, it appears, is Patriots-Jets. But hey, it's not like you really want to start anyone from those games anyway. So if you're looking to pick someone up, I mean, you can try to lean towards, Pickett and Howell are fine. CJ Stroud's probably going to throw a ton of times, and they're playing at Jacksonville. That might be a situation. Now, if you play in a deeper league, a 2-quarterback league, you're probably shit out of luck when it comes down. You'll probably have to play Jake Browning against the Rams. I have him ranked at number 22. Why do I have him ranked at 22? Well, you have terrible matchups everywhere below him for the week, whether it be Dobbs or Mac Jones, Ritter, Dalton, Tannehill, or Zach Wilson. And he still has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. If he's just competent, you throw a screen pass to Jamar Chase, he might break it for 80 yards. So you might let your weapons do the work for you in those circumstances. But I think of available options, Stroud is probably the best one. Pickett, Howell, then Stroud, but Pickett and Howell might be owned depending on the league that you're playing in now. So Stroud would be my choice, and I would play Derek Carr over Jordan Love this week. Taking a look at tight end, if for whatever reason you've lost a tight end, if you were really like banking on Foster Moreau or Irv Smith, Sam Laporta is ranked the highest of my options right now of potential pickups. Then it's probably Hayden Hurst and then Juwan Johnson. And Njoku's pretty widely owned, so you're not going to get much resistance there in terms of the waiver wire. Maybe Hunter Henry is still available. I have him ranked at number 4 right now. Some guys to keep an eye on for very, very, very deep leagues. Colt Turner, as I mentioned. Kate Otten for the Bucks on Monday night is running a ton of routes. He's basically running not as many routes as Godwin and Evans, but he is the third on that team right now. So against the Eagles, if the lockdown on the outside happens and Godwin can't free himself up, Kate Otten might actually be a pretty decent spot. And if Waddle truly is banged up, Durham Smythe is a pretty good look for the Dolphins. He's also running a ton of routes for Miami right now in a matchup where we'll see what happens. If Surtain can lock down Waddle or he can lock down Hill, there might be other options that they need to go to. Durham Smythe would be at the top of that list. I was hoping it would be my boy River Craycraft, but probably not going to happen for the week. And again, if you're streaming defenses, Jacksonville is at number 7 in my rankings. Miami is at number 8. I'm streaming Miami in a lot of my leagues this week. The Buffalo I had to put down against Washington because, frankly, what we're looking for, if you're new to the program, we don't really care how good a defense is. Now, if you can really project a low amount of points in a game, that's great. We're not the best at predictions around here. Really what you want to do is target a team that's going to have to pass a ton with a bad offensive line. Basically, just play against CJ Stroud every single week because they pass a ton and he's pressured on 44% of his dropbacks. That is the perfect situation to try to stream a defense. Unfortunately, A lot of people know that as well, and that's why they're all playing Jacksonville. Miami, in this circumstance, against Russ Danger. Russ loves to turn it over. Bad offensive line, and we'll just see how that goes. As underdogs, they're probably going to have to pass a ton. I would take a team passing 60 times and scoring 24 points over a team that runs the ball 60 times and scores 10 points. You're just not going to garner big fantasy defensive days against that type of offense unless they fumble 5 times, which is just a far more unlikely scenario than a sack, than a pick, than a return, and all those pressures leading to terrible decision makings. I do want to jump over to running back very quickly because we'll just kind of, you'll see here in a second. So, I mean, your regulars are going to be up. Bijan is now number 1 in the rankings with McCaffrey having already played, so I had to take him out. You have Kieran Williams at number 11. The highest ranked one who kind of reeks is probably, I mean, Rachaad White kind of reeks, but he's going to catch a ton of passes against Philadelphia, so I wouldn't worry too much about him. Gus Edwards, I did move up. Without Justice Hill around, he should dominate in the goal line and red zone scenarios. He's never going to catch a ton of passes. Indianapolis is not the best run defense going, but the Ravens are more than a touchdown favorite in this game. So I actually do like him a lot to have a pretty steady high-end running back 2 type of game. Not one that's like going to break your week and really carry you to a victory. Like Jerome Ford probably has a better chance of being that guy. He also has a better chance of being absolutely terrible as well with Kareem Hunt playing. Madison, I just don't see the Vikings running a ton, but if Cam Akers is not going to play, this is kind of like the last stand of workhorse Alexander Madison. Can he average better than 3.2 yards per carry? That has yet to be seen. But if there's ever a team to do it against, it's probably them. I did mention Aaron Jones. I have Jones ranked above A.J. Dillon right now because I expect him to play. And if I expect Aaron Jones to play, I expect him to be all right in this game. Although the Saints defense is pretty good. 17 seems like a nice little out because you know that he's going to catch passes out of the backfield. Should Aaron Jones not play, I would bump up A.J. Dillon into that Gus Edwards zone, probably 13 or 14, probably number 13. I'd probably put him a spot ahead of James Conner because in this matchup with Dallas with James Conner, you're just expecting him to catch a lot of passes. That is the out for him for a big fantasy day. Punch one in near the goal line. You say, Pat, it's a terrible matchup. Well, Matt Breida just had a terrible matchup against the 49ers. He ended up scoring a touchdown. It wasn't a great fantasy day, but James Conner is way better than Matt Breida, so keep that in mind. Zach Moss at number 21, Josh Kelly at number 20, Joe Mixon at number 19. And listen, Jahmyr Gibbs is set up for a very nice day against Atlanta. I just do not trust the Detroit Brain Trust and Dan Campbell to actually give him the rock to make this work. That's why I have Craig Reynolds actually at number 26 as well. I would expect Craig Reynolds to touch the ball more times than Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is way better than Craig Reynolds, but that's just kind of the out that we have to look at in these situations. So we don't really need to take too much of a look at wide receiver. What I did want to do was go over to runthesims.com and just take a look at the projections and see how some of these games are factoring out a little bit. And if you do have a question or you want to get the latest, 9:45 a.m. Eastern live on Sunday morning, the Mayo Media Network and ShipItNation.com are doing a live show. So if you do have questions, jump into that chat. They will be there for you. Not all the way up until lock, but probably through inactives to get you ready for the week, update you on the weather and any more injury situations that may arise. ShipItNation.com code Mayo gets you 10% off to help jump. Like what they do is that for the last hour, they're in their Discord helping everyone. If you want to join that Discord, use the promo code Mayo at ShipItNation. That link is down in the description. You can jump in there and get all of your questions asked as well. You can use code Mayo at runthesims.com as well if this is something that you want to get into. I'm going to shrink down this page for you so you can kind of see. I already ran the Sims on this, so you can see that Travis Etienne is the most optimal player for DraftKings purposes this week, followed by Tony Pollard, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, and Mike Williams. Like, yeah, we know that game is going to go off. The projections love Jahmyr Gibbs, but we're going to go to the inputs and take a look at that game for a second just to see why everything is spitting out. So this is what the standard projections say, and this is why I love Run the Sims, because I can go in and mess around with everything. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 49% of the market share of touches. I think he's going to get around a third of the carries in this game. I think Craig Reynolds is going to be the one who's up around that 50% mark, and then if we adjust him to 50%, all of a sudden, we're at 98. Let's just adjust him to 52 and see how that goes. That probably makes things a little bit easier on our end. Go to 52, and we'll probably swap that back. We'll go 31% touchdown market share for Jahmyr Gibbs, and we'll just swap that out and go 52. Oh, now we're too high. Make it 50% for Craig Reynolds. This probably makes probably will make Craig Reynolds a pretty decent play. But I mean, it might not be Craig Reynolds. This is just what I'm doing for this example. It might be Bam Knight, who ends up having more carries than Craig Reynolds because, just don't care anymore about like what he's up to. So we'll run the sims on that. And now we'll see if anything is a little bit different, see how far that drops Jahmyr Gibbs, and we'll take a look at our projections. This is just for the main slate on Sunday, so anyone in the Monday games is not going to be on it. By making those adjustments, with these round of simulations, you see that Tony Pollard pops out a little bit more than Travis Etienne, because every single time when you run 10,000 simulations, you're going to get slightly different results on everything. It's going to be the same names and everything like that, but you're going to have slightly different optimal rates and optimal leverage. Like my two favorite plays this week, if you watch the Friday show I did with Tambo, I'm trying to jam in Bijan and Pollard into every lineup. Unfortunately, it makes things very tough because then you have to go dumpster diving at receiver. River Craycraft was going to be my guy, but I thought that Jalen Waddle was going to be out. If he's not going to be out, again, like I said earlier, it's not going to be like the best situation for us going forward. So let's take a look at running backs and see how guys project out. So Tony Pollard is the highest projected on the slate right now. I'll shrink that down a little bit more to see if we can kind of shift that over. And boom. All right, yeah, 23.3 for Tony Pollard in terms of fantasy points, and that's not without him getting the rushing bonus, because these are for DraftKings scoring. Like ETN is projected is second at 21.5 points, but he is the only player projected for over 100 rushing yards this week in a medium projection, so he gets 3 bonus points for that. So realistically, in your standard season-long fantasy football league, he is going to be around 18.5, which still makes him number 2. It's just he's not a surefire number 2 like he is right now. Henry, Stevenson, Bijan, Miles Sanders is the one for me. I just can't get on board with this projection. The computer generally knows more than me, so it's probably better to trust the computer rather than trust me in terms of my rankings. That's why I love going to this to try to make my plays. But right now the projection has him 15 carries, 82 yards, and half a touchdown, along with 2.5 catches for 20 yards. Like, it doesn't seem like that much, but that makes his median projection around 16.5. So if you're looking for back-end plays, like he's $5,700. I prefer someone like Brian Robinson on DraftKings, who's the same price as Miles Sanders, but the optimals are spitting him out. Josh Kelly ranks as number 7. Mostert, Zach Moss, Ken Walker. Then even when I downgraded Jahmyr Gibbs to what I just did, he still projects out as the 11th best running back for the week. A lot of that has to do with full point PPR, 4 catches for 32.5 yards to go along with 10 carries for 50 yards, and cobbling together a half touchdown in projection between the two. So it could be, listen, it's a fantastic spot, a high-paced game, you would hope, from the Detroit side of the ball, which may push the pace for the Lions or for the Falcons a little bit more, who generally love to slow the game down, try to run as much as possible, but if they get behind by 10 or 14 early, they're gonna have to pass. Hopefully to Bijan, that would be great. What do we have for the Bijan? Yeah, like we only have him at 3 catches right now. I could see him with like 6, 7 catches in this game if they have to play catch up. Other than that, you have Gus Edwards, who projects out for almost 15 fantasy points in this game. Jerome Ford, even with Kareem Hunt, still right around 13, just behind Isaiah Pacheco and how I put in for Craig Reynolds. So you can kind of see the range that we're getting at with a lot of these guys. I do want to take a look at, this is a tool that we have. It's called the Classic Slate Optimizer. I don't know why I'm on this now. Go to the Classic Slate Optimizer because I do want to find a cheap running. I mean, I still might run out River Craycraft on DraftKings, but using the tools at Run the Sims and with everything that we've run right now, try to find out who the best points per dollar player is going to be right now. Let's go, and where are we at? Points per dollar. Let's sort by that. See what pops up for us. Braxton Berrios. So actually, I was even wrong on that. So I had the wrong guy. I had River Craycraft. I still believe that it would be River Craycraft over Braxton Berrios, but Braxton Berrios is pointing out to be the best points per dollar player right now. Tank Dell at 3,600 would be second with his median projection around 10 points. Devontae Parker. And then you actually have like good guys like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, guys you probably should be using. I really like Robert Woods this week, but he's already in that lineup, and I need to actually get cheaper than that. Josh Downs. Don't know how much I trust Josh Downs without Anthony Richardson. However, if they are behind in that game, that's a pretty easy flip for me because they didn't have to pass. By the time Gardner Minshew came in the game last week, they were already up by a ton. They just kept feeding Zach Moss. That's unlikely to be, listen, Indy can beat Baltimore. That's completely possible. Just look at the money line. They have, a 27% chance of winning that game. So it could be all Zach Moss all the time. That sounds like a good path to victory for the Colts over the Ravens. But in the more likely scenario, where they are massive underdogs in this game, as you can see that they are, where are they at here? Where's stupid Baltimore? 8-point underdogs, even a 44 game total. Maybe the short route, quick guy in terms of Josh Downs can just pile up enough catches to get you through. There's River Craycraft right now. So yeah, he projects behind Braxton Berrios. I mean, I still might roll him out here, but I need to find someone in that territory. I saw a nice write-up about Jonathan Mingo this week that maybe this matchup with Seattle could prove to be a lot better. And with Andy Dalton throwing the ball, he might just sling it and try to get the rookie more involved. He has big play potential. Not a terrible spot to go. Projects out better in terms of points per dollar than Adam Thielen does. Adam Thielen projects for more points, but obviously he's more expensive. And we're trying to jam guys into our DraftKings lineup, and that's not going to fly. The other one would be Josh Palmer. And I kind of had my eyes circled around him for a little while too, because you can't just have every single player. I mean, if you play in a smaller field GPP on DraftKings, then yeah, you can overstack. Tambo and I talk about that all the time. You use like 6-7 guys from one game and just try to get every piece and every angle of it, because you're only competing against 50 guys, 100 other teams. When you're competing against like 50,000 other in these giant GPPs, well, people are going to have you covered on that basis. You can get away with mistakes in a 50-person, 20-person, 100-person tournament. You're allowed to have a mistake or two in your lineup. When you're playing against 50,000, you need to be perfect or you have absolutely no chance. So as it comes down to Josh Palmer, this is the highest projected game by far on the slate. It's indoors. We don't have to worry about any of the weather. We know they're going to be optimal conditions. Josh Palmer should have had a touchdown last week against Tennessee. It was called back, and then they scored again to Keenan Allen on the very next play. So he is being utilized inside the red zone. It's a great way to get the lowest owned piece of that game, basically, from the Chargers side of the ball, and he's only $3,300. Everyone's going to have Mike Williams. Everyone's going to have Keenan Allen. So the way that you could think about it doesn't mean that if Josh Palmer scores, that doesn't mean that the other Chargers don't have good games, but it is taking away from their overall upside because they didn't score a touchdown. Josh Palmer did. He had the big play. So you can kind of work it that if you're not overstacking that Chargers-Minnesota game, which most people are going to be doing, but if you're not, and you're playing that Atlanta-Detroit game with the Detroit side smash like I am, having Josh Kelly I think makes a lot of sense, or I can drop down to Palmer in that lineup. Hopefully Palmer can get me like 12 points, something like that. Hopefully more, obviously. But if he's like 5 for 35 and a touchdown, and all of a sudden he has like 14 points, at least I have a part of that game, and it's not the piece that everyone else has. It's helping my lineup. And hopefully, now that the key core pieces of that other game aren't getting this touchdown, there's at least one touchdown taken away from them, that I can make it up from the other game and start lapping the field a little bit because everyone's on exactly the same play. So I might go from River Craycraft to Josh Palmer, which means I think I have enough money to go from Josh Kelly up to Brian Robinson, which I would really like to do, to go with my Goff, Amon-Ra, and Laporta potty with Bijan and Pollard. And all of a sudden we're counting our money, right? Probably not. We're probably coming last. But at least that is what I am doing in my main higher stakes lineups this week. RunTheSims.com/Mayo will get you 10% off, and you get access to all of these tools. Actually, I want to showcase one more off. It's a brand new tool that we have this year. It's called the Prop Sniper, and we'll load it up right now. It gives you all of the books that you could potentially want to use this week, and we're the best number for our projection. Like Zach Moss receptions over 2.5 with Deion Jackson being cut in a very negative game script. DraftKings is actually offering the best price on that right now. It's even money for 2.5 over. Some of the overs at other places are you have to play the juice of -133 or -132. Right now you can grab it at DraftKings at even money. That's the best. It doesn't just give you the best projected one, it gives you the one with the best price attached to it. Like, there's not a ton of super strong plays. Like Mac Hollins under right now, 2.5 receptions. You can see at this book, it's +105. That's not a bad spot to be either, although with the game script that I just laid out for Atlanta, they might actually have to throw downfield. Mac Hollins has weirdly been their deeper threat, probably because he's so jacked guy, if that guy's not on steroids, like he is in the best diet in the world and has the best trainer in the world, because those veins just be popping from Mac Hollins. Anyway, runthesims.com/Mayo. You can catch the Ship It Nation crew live at 9:45 a.m. Eastern on Mayo Media Network. So set your reminder, then I will return with Chris Meany and Tim Andacust live 7:15 p.m. Eastern, right at the end of the late set of games, all the way up until the lead-in of Sunday Night Football. You got nothing to do for an hour? Come hang with us as we recap the week, look forward to week 4, and make Cust fries in an air fryer and watch him eat them way too hot on TV because he always forgets because he gets too hungry. All right? Smash the like, sub to the newsletter for everything that you need. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!